Superman is debatably the most powerful hero in the DC universe, and for good reasons. He is essentially a god and has nearly limitless strength, and on top of that, he is invulnerable. But with that being said, Superman is still technically mortal, and as such, he has still been hurt pretty bad over the years. True, he is crazy powerful, but he also fights crazy powerful beings and literal gods on a daily basis. And when you have geniuses like Lex Luthor or Brainiac working on ways to hurt the Man of Steel, well, needless to say, Superman has had his fair share of serious wounds over the years. And this video is going to go over the 5 worst injuries that Superman has ever had. Wonder Woman slits his throat. In the Superman story, Sacrifice, Maxwell Lord uses his psychic powers to take over Superman's mind, and makes him think that he's fighting supervillains, but he's actually fighting his friends. And after he nearly kills Batman, Wonder Woman desperately tries to take Superman down. But a Superman unleashed is not an easy thing to defeat, so she gouges his eyes with her thumbs, she crushes his eardrums, and finally she slits his throat using her tiara. Of course, being Superman, he was able to survive these injuries. He's got a pretty good healing factor after all. But still, they were pretty severe. And they did eventually manage to free Superman. Wonder Woman puts her lasso of truth on Maxwell Lord and forces him to release Superman from his control. But Maxwell says that he will take control again and use Superman to kill others. Maybe Batman, maybe Lois Lane, maybe even Wonder Woman. And since he's under the control of the lasso of truth, he's unable to lie. And he says that the only way that Wonder Woman can stop him is to kill him. So Wonder Woman does. She snaps his neck and murders him. And this moment ends up being broadcast on national television to the whole world. So everyone in the DC world knows that Wonder Woman is a killer. It was a huge moment in the DC universe, and a pretty dark moment for Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman also fights Superman in a duel to the death in the Injustice universe. Now, it's a bit of a long story, but during the fight she again gouges his eyes, but this time she also breaks his arm as well. Now, the fight gets cancelled before anyone can die, of course, that's how it always goes in comics, but still, breaking Superman's arm is a pretty impressive feat. Superman is blinded. Now, this happens on at least 2 separate occasions. The first is in the TV show Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman. Now, the story is a little convoluted, but basically a super genius called Dr. Faraday has made an amazing device that can transmit knowledge and information directly into someone's brain using a beam of light. And the bad guys want it for themselves. I mean, who wouldn't want it? But Dr. Faraday says no and runs away. And unfortunately, the bad guys end up killing him, but not before Dr. Faraday is able to hide the device on Lois Lane. Now, the bad guys want to retrieve it from Lois Lane, of course, but Superman is always protecting her. So they create a device that can blind Superman in order to incapacitate him. And it works amazingly, completely blinding Superman. And the bad guys are able to abduct Lois Lane, and she manages to strike a deal with them. They give them the device, and they give Superman back his sight. Of course, it doesn't really work out that way. I mean, these deals with the bad guys never do work out right. But fortunately, Lois Lane is able to grab the blinding device and reverse its beam to fix Superman's eyes. And of course, they bring the bad guys to justice. And by justice, I mean Superman blows up the device with his heat vision and blinds both of them permanently. That's what you call karmic retribution right there. And Superman is also blinded in Action Comics 979. Now, in this story, Cyborg Superman and the Eradicator are breaking General Zod out of prison. It's all part of their plan to take out Superman and take over the world. Now, Superman himself heads to the prison to help out, and ends up getting caught in the Black Void, which is a cosmic superweapon, and it hurts him pretty badly and leaves him blind. Of course, Superman being Superman, he doesn't let this stop him, and so he carries on fighting the supervillains regardless, and promptly loses the fight, as he obviously needs to be able to see in order to fight them. After all, General Zod and the others are pretty much on the same power level as him. Now, fortunately, Superman's teammates turn up and they save him, but then they get beaten as well, and General Zod sends all of them to the Phantom Zone. But this actually turns out to be a good thing, as Superman's body has to be transformed into a phantom in order to go into the Phantom Zone. And while this is happening, Superman's body heals itself and he's able to see again. And of course, he then goes and saves the day, they escape from there, and they take down the bad guys. Although personally, I think he should have been blinded for longer. because watching the Man of Steel cope with a physical limitation like blindness could actually have been quite interesting to read, but I guess it wasn't really the main focus of this story. Kryptonite injuries. Now, it will come as no surprise to anyone that a lot of Superman's more serious injuries involve kryptonite. You know, the one thing that can hurt him. And I don't have time to go over all of them because there has been a lot over the years, but I will quickly go over a couple of the worst ones. In the film Teen Titans vs Justice League, Superman is possessed by a demon, and in order to free him, he needs to be severely injured, as that's the only way to get the demon out of its host. But Superman is nearly invulnerable, so Damian Wayne has to stab him with a kryptonite shard, which he does, freeing him from the demon. And he doesn't say sorry because Damian Wayne's a bit of a jerk. And Superman was also shot with a kryptonite bullet by Metallo in the film Justice League Doom. And since kryptonite shuts down his powers, this is basically the same as a normal human being shot with a normal bullet, meaning he almost died. And the worst part was they couldn't even perform surgery to help him, as the kryptonite was shutting down Superman's healing factor, but it wasn't fully stopping his invulnerable powers, which means Superman couldn't heal the wound, and no one could remove the bullet as they couldn't cut it out of his invulnerable flesh. So the bullet was stuck in his chest, slowly poisoning him with kryptonite radiation. That is, until Cyborg turned up and was able to use a piece of kryptonite to make a laser scalpel and cut a hole for Martian Manhunter to use his shape-shifting abilities to get the bullet out of his chest. And of course Superman was fine because once the kryptonite is gone, he pretty much heals instantaneously. And Superman was also shot with a kryptonite bullet in the Injustice universe. In the comic books, Black Canary gets revenge for Superman killing her lover, Green Arrow, and she does this by shooting him in the chest with a kryptonite bullet. And it does almost kill him. Superman is only able to survive because a yellow ring of fear chooses him to wield it, and he's able to use the ring's energy powers to remove the bullet and protect himself from the radiation. And next we have Darkseid injecting Superman with liquid kryptonite. Now this is done in the film Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. I basically think of it as a tattoo that's been put in his flesh and it can't be removed. But the kryptonite negates all of Superman's powers, which basically means he's been turned mortal. So he has to watch the Earth conquered and humanity suffer because of his decision to invade Apokolips. And Darkseid not only tortured him before this, but the kryptonite is slowly poisoning his body and will eventually kill him. Or at least it would, if not for the fact that he is cured of all of this when he is possessed by the demon Trigon. But still, it's a pretty bad injury, from a god to a mortal who is being slowly killed by radiation. Not exactly the Man of Steel's finest moment. So basically, kryptonite is either used to weaken him with its radiation, or it's used to coat a weapon. And if any weapon has a kryptonite coating, then it can slice through Superman's flesh as easily as a knife would slice through a normal human's flesh. Although thanks to Superman's super reflexes and super speed, he can usually avoid such a weapon. Though not always. Powers removed. Now as I mentioned, this has happened with Darkseid injecting Superman with liquid kryptonite. But it's also happened on several other occasions. And in a way, this is actually the worst injury that Superman has ever endured. After all, he is being transformed from a god to a mere mortal. And what could be a worse injury than him losing his godhood? Now as I say, this has happened a lot over the years in many different ways, but the main ones are a red sun. Kryptonians come from a red sun universe, and under a red sun, they have no powers. It's a yellow sun or a blue sun that gives them their abilities. So taking Superman to a planet where there is a red sun cuts him off from his power supply, and he becomes mortal. Though his powers will of course return once he gets back under yellow sunlight, although you can also use red sunlight lamps to take away his powers. And Lex Luthor actually did this in a movie so that he could torture Superman. He made a clone of Superman and then had him come into a room with red sunlight, and he beat the crap out of him with his bare hands and sometimes a baseball bat. It's one of Lex Luthor's more sadistic moments. And in Superman Red Sun, Batman does pretty much the same, luring Superman down into a red sunlight lamp room, and then he beats the hell out of him, and plans to leave him imprisoned under the red lights for all of time. But Wonder Woman intervenes, and Superman gets his powers back, and he would have captured Batman as well, except for the fact that Batman commits suicide by detonating a bomb in his stomach. Yeah, it's a pretty messed up film, though not a bad watch on the whole. But it's not just a red sun that can take away Superman's powers. It's actually not the whole yellow sunlight that Superman needs. it's only part of the yellow light spectrum, meaning he only absorbs some of the sun, not all of it. And the reason that's relevant is because a supervillain works this out and teams up with Lex Luthor, and uses Luthor's satellites to form a shield around the Earth to block the solar energy that Superman absorbs. So Superman was slowly losing his abilities, as all the stored up energy in his body was being used and couldn't be replenished. Of course, he beats the villain anyway and then stops the satellites, but it is quite an interesting way to cut Superman off from his power source. In fact, you could just activate this, have him live as a human, and not even beat him up. It's a pretty easy way to get rid of Superman. His powers can of course also be drained, though this has mainly been done by the Parasite over the years, as he is able to drain Superman's powers and turn him as weak as a normal human. Though his powers do naturally return over time as he recharges his abilities from the sun. Magic can also take away his powers, or just switch them and give them to another person, such as when Batman got Superman's powers due to a magical mishap. Superman is stabbed. In the film Justice League vs. the Fatal Five, Superman fights the Persuader, whose main weapon is an atomic axe that is so sharp it can cut anything, even Superman's invulnerable flesh. It's a pretty serious slice wound across his stomach, and a normal human probably would have died. But thanks to his healing powers and some quick medical care from the Justice League, Superman was just fine. Now, this axe isn't easy to come by. The Fatal Five are actually from several centuries in the future, where this kind of technology exists, and that's why Superman doesn't get cut up all the time by criminals with atomic weapons. We just don't really have the tech to make weapons this sharp. I say we, obviously I mean in the DC universe. And even if it can be made in the current timeline, it's still extremely difficult to get hold of a weapon that is atomically sharp. But not impossible. Superman has also been cut and stabbed by the Ghost Soldier, a man who has the power to phase shift, and he can shift a knife right into Superman's invulnerable chest, and basically use it to cut him just like a real person would be able to be cut with a knife. And these are just ordinary knives he's using, there's nothing special about them, other than the fact that the Ghost Soldier is phasing them. And since he can phase, Superman is unable to even touch the Ghost Soldier, let alone knock him out. So basically, he's got an enemy that he can't touch and that he can't hurt, but who can hurt and touch him with ease. But thankfully, Superman has other abilities to call upon, and he was able to use his freeze breath to stop the Ghost Soldier in his tracks. But if he hadn't been able to stop him with his freeze breath, then Superman very easily could have died. After all, the Ghost Soldier could easily have phased a knife right into Superman's skull and caused instant brain death. It's weird that he's not in more stories because when it comes to fighting Superman, the Ghost Soldier is actually a pretty serious threat. And that is Superman's 5 worst injuries. Personally, my favourite is just Wonder Woman slitting his throat, because that is just an amazing moment in DC history, and pretty surprising the first time you read it, because you really don't think she's going to slit his throat, and you definitely don't think she's going to kill Maxwell Lord. And though this isn't the first time a villain has thought of mind-controlling Superman's godlike power, it's still a very enjoyable read. But which of these is your favourite? And are there any other injuries that you think should have been on this list? Be sure to let us know in the comments, and I'd just like to quickly remind everyone that we have some merchandise available on our store, and to say thanks to all of you who have donated to the Needle Mouse Productions page on Patreon. And as always, thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment.